Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Quantum Online Sangha. This is our monthly live Q&A, and today we do have a special guest, which I'm very excited. She's the first time that she's on our live Q&A. Usually I've been doing them, and some people have been joining me, but today we have Zen Master Bonhei, otherwise she's known as Judy Reitman. She's been practicing with Zen Master Seung Song since 1976. She's one of the founders of the Kansas Zen Center. She started teaching or got Inka from Zen Master Seung Song in 1998, and then got transmission from Zen Master De Kwang in 2013. So she's currently the guiding teacher of the Kansas Zen Center. Thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you.
Most of you, looks like from the chat, I just want to say hello to a few people. We have Bath-Robed Monk on. Hello. Javier, hi. GM, hi. Jay, hello from Minnesota. Welcome. Oh, we got Catherine. Hello, good to see you again. Vivian, Douglas, Colin, good morning. And Johanna, good morning. A lot of online Sangha members. So most of you know the format. Basically, if you have any kind of questions about your practice, Zen, meditation, if you have questions about the online Sangha, anything like that, feel free to ask and we'll do our best to answer. I just want to announce a few things before we get going. One of them is some people have been asking about this heart Kyol Che. So in our tradition, this Kyol Che is a 3-month retreat we do. We actually have it in 4 locations this year, Hong Kong, Korea, Europe, and America. So it starts at different times depending on the location, but basically it's a 3-month retreat. People can sit usually from 1 week up to 3 months. There's a lot of people who are not able to attend these retreats, so we have this heart Kyol Che where during this retreat time, this winter period, people are taking extra time to do practice. So they might be doing longer sittings or extra bows or chanting, things like this. And that's also a good way to support yourself, but also the community. So many of you know who are on the online Sangha that we've been going to our Facebook page and people have been talking about their commitment to practice and what they're doing. I do have information about heart Kyol Che, so we don't go on and on and on. Check out the link below. You can go directly there and find out more. Also, some of you who are already online members, we have switched to the new platform, the online platform. So that's all set up. So in the next couple months or so, you will be receiving an email talking about how to switch over. So stay tuned for that. I'm very excited about it. We had about 8 people do a trial, and it's going very well. So this platform not only will take care of just the monthly billing and all that stuff, but it will be a place where people can log into and see content, and content that you usually can't see on the internet. For example, we have some rare talks from Zen Master Seung Song. We have some video from him from different Zen centers. And also we have all of these live Q&As in the archive. So it's going to be one place that you can get all of this information. And we're just starting it out, so it's going to grow. So stay tuned for that email. If you're not part of the online Sangha and you're interested, I also have a link down below. Check it out. And what was the other one? I'm sure when it comes back to me, I'll figure it out. So let's just get started. So anyways, if you have any kind of question, we have a lot of people here. Please type it in the comments below. Oh, Joshua, good to see you. Good morning from Reno. Tamron says good afternoon. I guess she's obviously in a different part of the world. It's really early for me. Lukash, hello. Usually it takes a little while for people to get started. So is there anything you wanted to say, Judy?
Nope. I'm just waiting.
Okay. There was something else I wanted to announce. Oh, about the heart Kyol Che, sorry. So some of you are already part of this heart Kyol Che. You registered on the link and you received a confirmation email. You also been joining the Facebook group and talking about your commitment. So also, this is very important, on January 6th, and this is going to be 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's the time we are at right now. Zen Master Song Hyang and I will be doing a kind of opening talk for the Kyol Che. So I will post some information about that on our Facebook group. You will also receive an email if you've registered for the Heart Kyol Che. So this is going to be good. As you know, Zen Master Song Hyung has been on here before. She's the head teacher of the Quantum School of Zen. And also she's the guiding teacher of the online Sangha. So please do that. Come to that. It's going to be, again, Sunday, January 6th, 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Wow, Toby is from Germany. Hello. And so far, we have over 25 people here and no questions so far, which is very unusual. So if you have a question, put it in the chat. So any kind of question's okay. If you want to talk about your practice, you want to talk about Heart Kyol Che.
Stock market's okay too.
Stock market's okay. Anything. If you have some good jokes, please share it with us. And Judy can't see anything right now, so it's very odd for her. I see the chat going on, so it's kind of interesting. People checking in and saying hello. But all Judy sees is my face. So if you have a question, type it in now. All right. We do have a question from Tamarind.
Hi, Tam.
Could you talk about any experiences you have had with Heart Kyol Che or regular Kyol Che? Why is this important?
Yeah, so it's really important to have times of intense practice. And because of my job, I was never able actually to do Kyol Che. So instead, what I would do is I would go on long solo retreats when I could manage to find the time to do them. And I would do usually 3 or 4 weeks. And then when I was 65, I said, oh my God, I'm old and my body's going to fail. And if I don't do a 90-day solo retreat, I will never have a chance to do one. And actually, I should have done a 100-day solo retreat, but I had obligations, professional obligations, so I could only do 90 days. And so this extra and intensive practice is, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to do, to find the space and to find the time to do intense practice and to do practice where you're not being pulled away by the rest of your life. What happened, I'll talk about my 90-day retreat because that's sort of the most clearest example. So what happens when you go, well, any long retreat, what happens when you go on a long retreat is you get there and you have all this stuff going on from your life. So for example, when I went to this 90-day retreat, I had this friend who was in a very difficult situation with her family and in particular with her son-in-law. And I got up to this retreat and all I'm thinking about is my friend and her son-in-law and how, you know, I really wouldn't mind it if the mafia took him out and, you know, just this guy's just, he's ruining her life and all this kind of stuff. And I'm getting up there and I'm up in the lower Rockies, the foothills, not really foothills, it was 8,000 feet, but the Southern Rockies. And, you know, I'm sitting there and I'm doing my meditation and my chanting and my extra bows and my extra chanting and my extra sitting and all this stuff. And my mind keeps coming back to this guy. And I'm up there. And then after about 2 weeks, it occurred to me that I had no idea at that point what her life was like. You know, 2 weeks had gone by. So who knew, you know, what was going on? And I could just see my mind, how it makes everything, because the things that it encourage it to make everything weren't there anymore. And I could just see it's all my projection. It's all my thinking. It's not real. And that's a very powerful thing. So you take yourself away from your situation and then you can see how much of the situation you're actually making, that it's not really what's happening. and you become not so pushed around by your thinking. Another thing that happens on intense retreats is that things can come up that ordinarily would never come up, and you can face them. And another sort of example of this, I was doing a 3 or 4 week solo retreat in Temenos, which is this sort of, it's not exactly a meditation center, but you can rent cabins, and people have used it in our school. It's on the East Coast. And I had rented this little cabin, which actually I believe was built by Link Rhodes, Jita Popsonim. So I'm sitting in this cabin where it's sort of traditional for us to do retreats and solo retreats. And around halfway through that, I had this sense that this demon had taken over me. This demon was like inside me and looking out through my eyes, which naturally I was terrified. But I said, I'm just going to keep the schedule. And if I wake up in the morning and the demon is still there, I will leave this retreat. I will check myself into a mental institution. It was really terrifying. And so I'm sitting there and feeling that this demon, and it was just like, it was just this feeling that another creature, which was a demon, was looking out through my eyes. It didn't have any physical appearance. It had just taken me over and was looking out through my eyes. And so I'm sitting there, and then it's time to do walking meditation. So I get up, I don't hit the chukpi, but I get up and do walking meditation. And I'm walking in the little porch of my little cabin. And as I'm walking, of course, what I see is changing, because I'm moving and I'm looking at different things at every second. And suddenly I had this insight: the demon is not looking out through my eyes. Nobody is looking out through my eyes. The universe is coming in through my eyes. There's never anybody there to look out. Just everything comes in through my eyes. And then the demon vanished. So an intense retreat allows you this kind of thing. It gives you the space and the place where you can experience things and really see the kind of mechanisms, the inner mechanisms that we really have no words for, the way our mind actually works as opposed to the way we think it works. And it gives you the time and the space to do that. So that's intensive retreats. And I'm a tremendous fan of intensive retreats. And I really encourage people to find a way to do them. Even if you can't fit into the Kyol Che schedule, try to find like a week or two where you can go somewhere and do something very intense and away from all the distractions of your life. And of course, Kyol Che is wonderful because you're doing it with other people, which is in itself a wonderful way to get out of yourself, because there are these other people that are constantly mirroring you. It's like a mirror, all these other people, and you come out of yourself because you have other people to help. You have things you have to do to maintain the retreat, whether it's helping to cook or helping to clean, or the person next to you, you just sense their energy and you're giving them your energy. And so it's a wonderful way to really, again, come out of your self-imposed kind of cage and really this together action. When you sit, even a short retreat, when you sit together and there's no speech, and then at the end of the retreat, and everyone starts talking and you feel like you've lost something, because there's this intimacy that comes from silence, and that comes from just really everyone's working hard and focusing hard, and something happens in that, and it's very magical. And then for heart Kyol Che, so in our school, many of the teachers, if someone wants to become like a senior Dharma teacher, many of the teachers insist that they do like 100-day special practice, sort of like an individual heart Kyol Che. And I remember when I was going through that, and the discipline of it, the fact that it wasn't just going down to the Zen Center or going down to my own meditation room or anything like that. It was this discipline that I was doing this extra thing every single day for 100 days. And traditionally it's done around midnight, like you start at 10 or you start at 11 and you go around midnight for like 2 or 3 hours. And so that was a very powerful thing, this discipline that instead of saying, oh, I feel like doing this or I feel like doing that, it was, I'm on this collapsible bench and it just collapsed. It's this real discipline. So extra practice is always wonderful. Long, intense retreats is always wonderful. Long, intense retreats with other people is always wonderful. It's this magic that happens, and the practice really takes hold. So yeah, so go do it. Everybody go do it.
Mm. Thank you, Judy, for your answer. And thank you, Tam, for your question, because now that opened up a lot more questions.
Okay.
And if you just joined us, welcome to the Quantum School of Zen. This is our live Q&A. We're here with Zen Master Bong Hei and Judy Reutman. She's the guiding teacher of the Kansas Zen Center. So if you have any kind of question about your practice, meditations, and type it in the chat and we will try to respond. Next question is from Jay, or actually Catherine said, let's meditate for 10 minutes. Go ahead. Jay, I'm new to the Quantum School of Zen. How does it differ from Soto Zen?
Yeah, so Soto Zen emphasizes shikantaza meditation, which I can't really talk about because I've never really done it. I've sort of experimented, but I never had a Soto teacher, so I don't know if I was doing it right or not. So in Quantum Zen, we're a Lin Chi school. So Lin Chi was this great Tang Dynasty Zen master. And what happened around that time, there was this split between the Lin Chi school and the Caodong school, which became in Japan, it became Soto Zen. So the Caodong school emphasizes just sitting, just meditation. And it's the Lin Chi school that does the kongans, the questions, like does a dog have Buddha nature, where the student comes in to the teacher, and instead of the student asking the teacher questions, the teacher asks the students questions, and the students have to answer. And the answer is not going to be the kind of thing, well, yeah, of course a dog has Buddha nature, or no, a dog doesn't have Buddha nature. How stupid could you be? It's a dog. You know, the question has to cut through your thinking, it has to cut through your speech. So it cuts through speech, it cuts through thinking. That's what the Lin Chi school emphasizes that. And then Lin Chi school meditations, they all, they're incredibly stupid. They all have, then there are a number of Lin Chi style meditations, but they all have no cognitive content. So it's not even like body scans where you label things. So a classic Lin Chi school meditation would be to simply count your breaths. So on the out breath, I like to do it on the out breath. So on the out breath, you go 1, and the next out breath, you go 2, and the next out you go 3, and you go up to 10, and then you start again at 1, and you go up to 10, and you start again at 1, 2, 3, you know, like that. You go up to 10, and yeah, that's really boring, right? Good. So what happens is you have this sort of mindless activity that you keep coming back to. So when you see yourself spacing out or you see yourself following some idea, you have this very concrete thing to bring it back to. So it might be fast mantra. It might be, what am I, don't know. It might be just simply the great question, what am I, which you're not analyzing. You're not using this up here, just this, whoa, you know, what is this? What am I? This real, whoa question, this deep, deep question. And these things are all mindless. That is, there's not cognition involved. And so you bring your mind back, you bring your mind back. So that's Lin Chi style school. So we're a Lin Chi school. So Rinzai is the Japanese Lin Chi school, and Korean Son is the Lin Chi school. So that's the difference. The difference is between shikantaza, and also there's this, in Soto Zen, there's this tremendous element of form, like they really, really talk about posture. in a way that Lin Chi schools don't talk about posture. So Lin Chi schools, they have this very simplistic meditation. And ultimately, all Lin Chi schools come down to this great question. And the great question has many forms, like, what am I? What is this? So just this, this, wow, like that, just cutting through speech, cutting through thinking, cutting through that. So that's Lin Chi school. And we are a Lin Chi school.
Thank you, Jay, for your question. We have a question from DC Mootown. How can I overcome social anxiety?
You don't have to. All you have to do is don't let it run your life. You know? So yeah, you can be socially anxious. That's okay. It doesn't matter. Just like you can be angry, that's okay. You can be sad, that's okay. The only thing is don't let it run your life. So that's what meditation can really give us. So let's go back to, you know, my description of meditation. We have some mindless, stupid thing that we're going back to constantly all the time. That means that all this other stuff comes up and we learn not to follow it. So that's so important. We learn not to follow it. So I always tell people, if you're sitting at home, set the timer on your watch, because that's what everyone uses. Not watch, it on your phone. Set the timer on your phone. Put your phone behind you so you can't check the time without going like that, which you're not going to do because you know that's really uncool. If you put the phone like right here, you know, then you can hit the button and see the time, but you put it where you can't see it. And when the timer goes off, that's when you get up. And if you feel that this meditation is so wonderful, I am in samadhi. Oh, this is so wonderful. I'm going to continue sitting here. No, you get up. And if you're sitting there and you think, oh God, I can't stand this. I've got so much to do today. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to get up. I've got to check my email. I've got to wash the dishes. I've got to do the laundry. I got to wait. You know, you still sit there until that timer goes up. And of course, when you sit with a group of people, then you can't get up until the chukpi is hit, right? Boom, boom, boom. Then you can get up. So we learn not to let our thinking and our emotions tell us what to do. So my teacher used to call all those things, he called them your backseat driver. And this is Zen Master Sung San. And he had this, his English was absolutely terrible. And it was a great virtue because it caused him to really, distill the essence of the teaching. And so, he had this very strong accent and he would say, you tell your backseat driver, shut up, like that. That's what he would do. And so that's what we're doing. We don't even have to tell our backseat driver to shut up. We're just not paying attention to our backseat driver. So then social anxiety is no problem. Anything is no problem. So I have a friend who, she's a musician, her husband's a musician, her kids are musicians. And one of her kids, when he was in high school, and he always practiced the clarinet 2 hours every day after school, always 2 hours every day. And one day she says to him, she says, don't you get tired of doing that? Don't you think, oh, maybe today I won't practice, or maybe today I'll practice a little less? And he said, sure. Yeah, I have those thoughts. And I say, okay, time to practice. So that's our lives. And, you know, it's very easy to say that. You know, the person who asked this question, I know it may sound like I'm just discounting what you're saying. Oh, social anxiety, that's nothing. It's not. It's not. I mean, social anxiety, depression, anger, these things take us over. I should add that happiness takes us over too. Sometimes we're just so happy we can't see what's in front of our nose. You know, so all these feelings, they take us over, and some of them are pleasant and some of them are not pleasant. And it is very difficult to cut through them. But it's also very simple. So simple doesn't mean easy. Like playing Mozart, if you know music, playing Mozart can be very simple, but it's very difficult to do it simply. It's very difficult to be very clear. So I'm not discounting things like social anxiety. What I'm saying is that you don't have to worry about getting rid of it. all you have to do is not let it ruin your life. So that takes a level of anxiety about your anxiety away, because you don't have to actually get rid of it. You just have to not let it run your life. So that's an easier task. So the more we can be like my friend's son, oh, yeah, I don't feel like practicing, but I'm going to practice because it's time to practice. The more we can be like that in our lives, then the better off we are. And meditation is really practice in doing that. So if you're sitting there in meditation and say you have social anxiety and you start thinking about this thing you have to do that involves other people and your anxiety starts rising, you can let it rise. You don't have to stop it, but you just bring your mind back to whatever your meditation practice is, and you can just let it float, just let it be whatever it's doing. It doesn't have to control you. So Shunryu Suzuki, who is a very great Soto teacher, actually, and the way he described meditation, he said it's like a shotgun house. Now, I don't know how he knew about shotgun houses, because they're in New Orleans and he was in San Francisco in Japan. They don't have shotgun houses in either place. But what a shotgun house, the reason it's called that is you walk in the front door, you open the front door, and then you see the living room, and then there's the dining room, and then there's a kitchen, and there's a bedroom. And if you open all those doors, and then there's a back door. So if you open all those doors, you can take a shotgun. I guess a shotgun's like this, and you can shoot a bullet, and it goes through the entire house and out the back door. And he said, it's like a shotgun house. You just keep your practice going, and all these things will just drift. They'll drift in the front door and out the back door. They'll drift in the back door and come out the front door. And you don't have to do anything about them. You just keep your mind on your practice. You just practice. And then these things will just simply float in and they'll float out. And as my teacher would say, they don't control you. So good luck with your social anxiety. I know it's not trivial, but I really encourage you to practice very strongly. And when you see these things come up, to just bring your mind back to your practice. And then in the rest of your life, when you see this come up, just bring your mind back to the task at hand. Maybe the task at hand is greeting somebody. Maybe the task at hand is, helping clear the table. Whatever the task at hand is, just bring your mind back to that and leave your social anxiety alone. You don't have to be anxious about your anxiety. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. Next question. Tobias, welcome. Jason, you mentioned bodhisattva sickness once. What does it mean? I'm not sure, remember saying that, but when I think of bodhisattva sickness, I think of, kind of Judy mentioned this too, is like things are, it's very easy to get attached to something, whether it's thinking or feelings. So we don't think about the other side of that too, is sometimes it's very easy to get attached to this idea of helping other people or helping this world. I remember hearing a story about someone in our school who was from Europe, and when they first started practicing, they went to the Zen Center for the first time. They did the chanting and sitting, and they were just very inspired about practicing. They loved the smell of the incense and the Buddha and the together action. And so it inspired him to do something. So he got on, he left the Zen Center, got onto the bus. He sat in the very front seat of the bus, and it was during rush hour. And he started to think about all the different ways he could help the world. So he was thinking to himself, maybe I'll be a monk. Yeah, that's the best way to, no, I don't want to do that. Maybe I'll go to Africa and feed the children, or maybe I'll become a teacher. So he's thinking of all these wonderful ideas, right? And then he said he doesn't remember when, but he kind of snapped out of it. And then he looked around the bus, and the whole bus is jam-packed like sardines. Everyone's standing up. And right in front of him was this woman, probably in her late 90s, early hundreds, standing up, holding on to the pole for dear life and just giving him a dirty look. And he said at that moment, he said if his mind was clear, he would have seen the woman and wouldn't even thought about it, just got up and said, please have a seat. But he was in a dream, and I call it the how may I help you dream? Or I guess you could say bodhisattva sickness. So that's why it's important too. It's like Judy mentioned quite a few times, several times actually, is to have this practice, rely on this practice. So we have a direction, and then we have the tool, which is the practice. And this, we can't have one without the other. It's kind of like two wings of a bird. So to me, that's what bodhisattva sickness is.
Can I comment on that
Oh,
also?
yes, please.
Yeah. So there's also the bodhisattva sickness where you're so caught up with how wonderful and helpful you are that you help people who really don't need help. For example, right now, I'm on crutches because I had this, I had this weird accent. See, here's my crutch. I'm on crutches and people want to help me. And so I was, when people are giving me a ride or helping me or coming with me to my car, because they think I can't somehow get to my car. And what they always want to do is they want to put the crutch in the back seat because that's where you put things. But if you're on crutches, you have to have your crutches near you at all times. So it's like in their desire to help, they grab my crutches and they start putting them in the back seat. And I'm like, excuse me, So there's this thing that people have where they're so caught up with how much they're helping people that in fact, they're not helping. So you have to really look around and see whether somebody actually needs that help. It's the thing like people will see somebody blind at a crosswalk and they'll grab their arm. That's the worst thing you can do.
Right.
So you have to be very careful when you're helping people to make sure that you're actually helping them and not just living out your idea of what helping people is. And this really comes up when we start meditation and we're very enthusiastic about it. And we want everyone to know this wonderful thing. And we want everyone to meditate and we want to tell them about it. No, when they're ready, they'll do it. And maybe they'll never do it. And maybe that's fine. There are 84,000 expedient means. And so this desire to sort of rush in there without looking what you're actually rushing in. And then what Jason mentioned, this image of I am a person who helps other people. So when someone comes up to me and says, I'm a person who helps people, and then I think, uh-oh, because if you're really helping people, you're not even thinking about yourself helping people. You're just doing it, just 100% doing it. So that's very important. You take the I completely out of it. And just what is it that needs to be done right now? And that's what you do. So thank you.
Great question, Tobias. Colin, I was talking with my teacher about the difficulty of keeping with practice during, quote, good times, as opposed with the relative ease of keeping with practice during, quote, bad times. Could you speak on this?
Oh boy, could I ever. So there are people who come, and every Zen Center knows this, there are people who come to the Zen Center and then they disappear, and they disappear because they got a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
Right.
And now they're happy, they don't need to practice, So yeah, so the thing about practice is it's not a thing that, most of us start practice. I know I certainly did because we're desperate in some way. I was suicidal. I was really incredibly anxious and disturbed and even a little bit delusional. And so I just grabbed practice like a lifeline. I just grabbed onto it like boom, I just grabbed onto it and I held onto it. It wasn't Zen practice. It was relaxation response meditation because I read about it in the New York Times. This was in 1974. And, it was the only thing I could see. So I grabbed onto it. And then I had this great shrink, but that's another story. So a lot of us, we come to practice and we grab onto it because there's such misery in our lives. There's such suffering in our lives, and we see the suffering around us, and we really want a way out of the suffering. But practice is not designed to get us to a happier state. I know the Dalai Lama goes around and says Buddhism, the purpose of Buddhism is to be happy, but what he means by happy is not what most people mean by happy. He means this great wide bodhisattva mind that takes in the whole universe, which is a very different kind of thing. And so we have this thing, and if we think of practice as therapy, because when do you walk out of the shrink? You walk out of the shrink, you say, thank you, we're done, which happened to me. My shrink said, hey, I think we're done. I said, yes, we're done, great. What happens is you walk out of the shrink's office when you're somewhat functional and your demons don't control you and you don't have this, all these very difficult feelings to deal with. Your suffering is just normal. Human suffering is relatively temporary and you can handle things, and then you walk out. But that's just where practice starts. When we can look beyond our own suffering and see the world as it actually is, that's when practice starts. And then we can really, really practice. And everyone has these moments in practice where all of a sudden it's like things clear up. And then people think, oh, now I'm done. But no, you're not done. You're never done. That's the important thing. So the Korean tradition, there's this great teacher, Chinol. I think he's 11th century. And he's not technically Zen because he never went to China to get transmission. But, he's one of the founders of Korean Son. And he was a very, very great, very famous teacher. And one of his main teachings was that every opening is just a sign that you need to practice more. So instead of talking about enlightenment or anything like that, we should talk about opening, because they're just openings like, oh, I can see a tree. I remember, when I was first starting to practice, I've been practicing for 2 or 3 years, and I saw this fly on the kitchen counter. I was like, whoa, look at that fly. It was so cool. I mean, think of it. They're gorgeous. They have these like sort of iridescent wings and, the delicate legs with these delicate little feathery things on them. And they're amazing. And so, whoa, that means that I have to practice even harder. So when you can get out of your own personal suffering a little bit, that means you have to practice even harder. And when you can get out of your complacent happiness a little bit and actually see the fly on the countertop, that means you have to practice even harder. And if you have visions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas coming down, I'm not very visually imaginative, so I never have those visions. That means you have to practice even harder. So you just keep practicing. It's nonstop. You never stop practicing. That's very, very important. Because otherwise it's like, it's like this medicine that you take and then you feel better and then you stop taking it and then you're going to feel bad again. So you're going to take it and, over and over and over. And that gets you nowhere. So just keep practicing through everything. That's extremely important. So thank you, Colin, for your question.
Thank you, Judy, too, for your response. Question from Cygnus Video. Do you think it's problematic for regular practice to have several different teachings from different sources, or is it better to just go with one practice at a time? For example, I notice sometimes that conflicting ideas between different teachings can make me feel anxious and stop practicing because they cancel each other out due to having conflicting ideas.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, because we live in this marketplace of Buddhisms. So even in the area around Kansas City, I mean, Lawrence, Kansas, well, you can do our practice. You can practice with a Thich Nhat Hanh group. There's a Jodo Shinshu group, which keeps very quiet. You sort of have to know about it secretly. They're not very public about it, which is a surprise because it's Jodo Shinshu. There's all kinds of practicing you can do. There's, of course, there's mindfulness is everywhere, all over the place. Yoga studios, shrinks, everybody's doing mindfulness. So even in a little town like Lawrence, Kansas, there's this big marketplace, and you want to try this and you want to try that, and you go to this teaching and that teaching. And yeah, they do seem to conflict with each other, because one group talks about impermanence and another group talks about emptiness. And one group talks about this kind of, visualization, maybe Tibetan style visualization, and another talks about counting breaths. And it gets very, very confusing about what to do, because if we're attached to the sort of cognitive level, or if we're attached to the practical level, it can seem that there's a conflict. But what's really going on is they're all pointing to the same thing. So this hand, where I'm located right now, this finger is pointing east, and this finger is pointing west. But what they're actually pointing at is this thing in the middle, right there. They're pointing to the same thing. But it's very hard to see that it's the same thing that they're all pointing at. And so I think it's very important to pick a particular practice and to stick to that as your practice. And yeah, you can read other things and you can go to talks by other people, but you should stick to one practice, because otherwise, yeah, you are going to get confused cognitively. You're not going to know what to do as far as your actual practice goes. Like one school says to look forward when you practice with your eyes open, another says to look down when you practice with your eyes open, and then it says no, close your eyes. What are you supposed to do with your eyes? You know, if you go bounce around like that, you don't know what to do. And then your practice can't deepen because you're always bouncing around, trying this, trying that, trying this, trying that. Oh, this teacher said this, I should try that. So that is ultimately not helpful. So I really recommend that you practice in one particular form, you know, whether it's Quantum School of Zen or Soto Zen or Rinzai Zen or Tibetan style. And then Tibetan style, you have to pick among the different Tibetan schools because, you know, human beings, right? They always decide to split up, you know, whether it's mindfulness or, you know, strict Theravada, which is what mindfulness comes from. Whatever it is, you pick a practice, you do that practice. And maybe you find that that practice doesn't fit, and then, yeah, then go to another practice. Then you do that practice, but don't bounce around. Don't bounce around. And when you read something from another school, then penetrate the words. Don't get stuck at the surface of the words. Penetrate the words. See what they're pointing to. All Buddhist teaching is not about the surface of the words. It's all about cutting through and what is this actually pointing to? And it's pointing to something very intimate and something that's beyond sectarianism, something that's not a matter of opinion. It's pointing through that. So if you find you're having opinions about things, understand that that's not what it's pointing at. So I encourage you to find something that really fits, stick with that, and then you're free to sample other things, but don't make that part of your practice. Just make your practice one thing. So.
Thank you very much. Just so if you just joined us recently, we have just several more minutes, not too much longer. We have over 30 people joining us. If you have one last question, type it in. We still have a couple more here. One's from Brian. Any insights into cultivating jhana or dhyana?
Dhyana.
Well, Sanskrit is, can you clarify that? Sanskrit, it's
jhana. It's pronounced jhana.
That's Pali, though.
No.
Isn't it Sanskrit's dhyana?
Is it?
Anyways.
Are you sure? Okay.
Same word,
Anyway.
different languages. But
anyway, there we go. Yeah, so don't cultivate anything. That's the Zen response. We don't cultivate anything. We just practice. And things will come up. Yeah, but Zen is not about attaining states. So you're talking about the Theravada practice where you attain the first jhana, then the second,
Right.
and the third, but that's not Zen. Zen is we don't cultivate states. Zen is become clear. And you don't cultivate clarity. You can't cultivate clarity because if you were to cultivate it, then it wouldn't be clear. So Zen is just 100%, just do your practice. That's what Zen is. And whatever comes up, whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it the 100th jhana or whether you call it the minus 10th jhana, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. Don't even become attached to this notion of enlightenment or awakening. Don't even become attached to that, because you have to continue waking up moment after moment after moment after moment. You can't say, okay, now I'm awake. That doesn't make any sense because this universe goes on and you go on. So just moment after moment after moment, just 100%. That's Zen. So don't cultivate anything.
Thank you. And just previously, the Cygnus video said, that's exactly what I need to hear. Thank you so much. Another thank you from DCP Mootown and Janusz. Oh, welcome, Janusz. He says, great teaching. So here's, let's say, the last question here. It's from Javier. He's been one of the first online Sangha members. He has a question. Can you tell us about your experience with Kongan practice? In the interviews, my teacher tells me that I must trust 100% in the answer that appears in front of my eyes. But when weeks later, an answer has appeared, and I felt that I've totally trusted it, to the following interview, I share it with my teacher, and the answer is wrong. What to do with feeling of frustration and sadness that remains?
Congratulations. So I have an article in a fairly recent issue of Buddha Dharma, which unfortunately is not online, but I have an article on Kongans. So how much time do we have, Jason, at this point?
Usually we end now, but you could take a few more minutes. No problem.
All right. So this frustration that you're dealing with is a very important part of Kongan practice. So yeah, you have to completely believe in everything you do. Everything you do, you have to completely believe in it. So sometimes, people give an answer like, oh, I don't know, I'll make up an answer that's not an answer to any Kongan. Coca-Cola? Like that. And I'm like, is this an answer or a question? No, you have to say Coca-Cola. Well, maybe you don't have to shout, but just Coca-Cola, just very clear. You have to believe everything you do. So you believe in it. And then if the teacher says yes, if the teacher says no, that's not the point. The point is that you believe in what you're doing. You're doing it 100%. And then if the teacher says no, then that's an opportunity to learn. So I was a research mathematician before I retired. And research mathematician is wonderful because for most of us, there are like maybe 10 people in the world this isn't true for most of us, 99% of our ideas don't work. So we believe in these ideas and we follow these ideas and we, look at these ideas and we develop these ideas and we see, didn't work. And then if you go like, oh my God, it didn't work. I'm so stupid. How can, then you're dead, So it's just like, oh, didn't work. Okay, then you try the next idea. So to learn to do that in Kongan practice is absolutely wonderful. So this feeling of frustration, you don't have to feel frustrated. You feel frustrated, you feel frustrated, you feel frustrated, and then eventually you realize, whoa, this frustration's not getting me anywhere. And then after a while, this frustration sort of stops and you just start doing the work. And that's our lives. Our lives are just doing the work without wondering what someone is thinking about us. That fifth hindrance, so it's usually translated as fame, wanting people to like you. That's a huge hook. And it's such a hook in the Kongan practice because this person sitting in front of you, they have the power to tell you yes or no. They have a power to mess with your head if they feel like it. And it's a huge, huge hook and you don't have to bite that hook. You can just come in there, you can present your answer, and if the teacher says no, that's an opportunity to learn something. And often what that means is that the teacher is pointing in this direction and you're pointing in that direction. And maybe your answer would be good for someone who wants the question to point in that direction, but the teacher wants you to point in this direction. And that's what you need to learn. So it's no problem. It's absolutely no problem. So good luck.
Thank you. Javier is great. He's been with us for a while and is very sincere. Thank you everyone for your questions. Just a few comments. Brian says, awesome. Thanks for the response. Thank you from Russia. Thank you for all these great questions and answers, great teachings. And thank you everybody. So thank you for joining us for this live stream Q&A. Again, we do this once a month. Usually we have a sitting practice. Basically 30 minutes of sitting meditation followed by 2 chants and a short reading. That happens every Tuesday at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So about a month, we'll do another Q&A. If you are a a member of the online Sangha, there will be an archive of this recording, and that information will be posted in our Facebook group. If you're interested in becoming a member of the online Sangha, there's information down below. I posted that. For those of you who are doing Kyol Che, Zen Master Feng Hyang and myself are doing a opening talk January 6th. That's a Sunday at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you everyone again for joining us. Thank you, Judy.
And I want to
Go
thank
ahead.
everyone also. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, thank you for joining us. I hope to have you back. That was fantastic. It's nice to have people got tired of me after about a year, so it's nice to have some fresh, fresh Dharma coming. And we will see you next time.